This is the Samsung Galaxy S23 Plus, the new flagship that's like the Galaxy S23, but bigger. There's more to it than just the size though. I'm Will for GSM Arena, and let's find out what the Galaxy S23 Plus is all about in our full review. The Galaxy S23 Plus is the middle child of the S23 family. It offers a larger screen, form factor, and battery than the regular S23, but is smaller and less feature-packed than the Ultra. For example, you don't get the S23 Ultra's fancy new camera hardware, but of course the Ultra is a lot more expensive. The S23 Plus and S23 are both rather similar to last year's models. The notable improvements on the Plus include a bigger battery and a more powerful custom chipset. The design has seen some tweaks as well. It's definitely still recognizable, but you no longer have that camera bump that wraps into the aluminum frame. Now each camera sticks out individually from the back panel, and both the back and the front are protected by more durable Gorilla Glass Victus too. Of course, you again get IP68 rated protection against water and dust here. And all of the new S23 models are made from more recycled materials, Samsung's effort to make the manufacturing more eco-friendly. One of the major reasons to get the S23 Plus over the S23 is its larger display. It's 6.6 inches here versus 6.1. Again, it's a dynamic AMOLED display with a 1080p resolution and a 120Hz refresh rate. This display looks great. It's sharp and contrasty, and the color accuracy is spot on. You also get HDR10 Plus support. However, like on the rest of the Galaxy lineup, there's no support for 10-bit color here. Vision Booster is back. It automatically adjusts color and contrast depending on the ambient lighting, and is now expanded further up to 3 lighting conditions. Last year, the Plus model had the edge over the vanilla one when it came to screen brightness, but now Samsung has leveled the playing field. On the S23 Plus, we measured up to 770 nits with the manual slider, and this boosted to a whopping 1200 nits in auto mode. That's about the same as last year, and along the same lines as the S23. When it comes to refresh rate, the S23 Plus will give you that smooth 120Hz when swiping and scrolling on the interface. We saw it dial down to as low as 24Hz when idling to save energy, and Samsung claims it can go as low as 10. The Galaxy S23 Plus has a pair of stereo speakers with good loudness and Dolby Atmos support. The sound quality here is great, with a wide soundstage and tight-sounding mids. You can wake up and unlock the Galaxy S23 Plus using the ultrasonic under-display fingerprint reader. It's very responsive. And you can get the S23 Plus with 256 or 512 gigs of storage on board, and that isn't expandable through microSD. The interface of the S23 Plus is Samsung's One UI 5.1 on top of Android 13. It's a highly customizable UI that is also quite fluid and snappy, thanks to version 5's behind-the-scenes optimizations. We have a dedicated video about One UI 5 if you'd like to find out more about its specific features. Version 5.1 on the new Galaxy phones adds a couple of extra tweaks. There's a new battery widget, and an improved weather widget. Now you can also change the wallpaper within each mode, an option that wasn't available before. Within the Connected Devices menu, there's the option to continue browsing on PC if you're using the Samsung web browser. And the performance profiles within advanced battery settings have been reworked to just 2 modes. Light mode prioritizes battery life and cooling in day-to-day use. One of the major updates of the S23 series is a new custom chipset, and it's not an Exynos. Current flagships are coming out with the new Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, but Samsung is using a special version with higher CPU and GPU clock speeds. This chipset is more powerful than what we saw in last year's Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, and it also supports advanced memory tech, like UFS 4.0 and LPDDR5X RAM. In benchmarks, the peak performance tops the charts. The performance is excellent too, both in everyday tasks and heavy gaming. In that regard, it's only really beat by dedicated gaming phones, with their advanced cooling systems. While the thermal management of the S23 Plus is okay, we did experience some throttling in our prolonged stress test. The S23 Plus has a slightly larger battery than last year. It's gone from 4500 mAh to 4700. That's working together with a more efficient chipset, and so battery life is noticeably better here. The S23 Plus was able to score a great endurance rating of 111 hours in our proprietary tests. Charging speed is rated the same as last year at 45 watts, and again there's no adapter included in the box. Whether we used an official 45-watt or 25-watt Samsung adapter, we got the same charging results, filling the battery from 0 to around 57% in half an hour. Now on to the cameras, and we get the same setup on the back as both last year's S22 and S22 Plus and this year's S23. On all of these phones, you get a 50 megapixel main cam, a 10 megapixel 3x telephoto, and a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera. The main camera captures flagship grade 12 megapixel photos. The level of detail is great, and so is the dynamic range, and you get vibrant colors in typical Samsung fashion. The output is largely identical to what we see from last year's S22, just the color rendition seems to be tweaked. Portraits taken with the main cam are great. The subject detection and separation are excellent, and the background blur is convincing. You can also take zoomed portraits using the telephoto cam. They're just as nice as the regular ones. The telephoto cam captures impressive photos. They're sharp and detailed, even though they're upscaled from 10 megapixels to 12. The colors look great and are well matched to the main cam, and the dynamic range is wide. The ultra-wide cam does a decent job. There's a reasonable level of detail for this sort of camera, and the colors also match the other two cameras well. For some reason though, these shots seem softer than what we got from the regular S23. Maybe it's an issue with our review unit. Also, on both the S23 and S23 Plus, the focus is fixed like last year. We were hoping that the ultra-wide cam would get autofocus for macro shooting, and it was even listed in specs from some sources. If you're shooting in low light, the Galaxy S23 Plus can detect this and switch to auto night mode. But first, let's have a look at the shots from the main cam without night mode active. They're still excellent, with plenty of detail, nice contrast, true-to-life colors, and very low noise. Highlights and light sources are handled very well. If the auto night mode is triggered, or you manually toggle night mode on, these are the sorts of shots you can get. Because of the faster chipset, night mode shots are faster to capture than last year. They're similar to the regular ones, just a bit brighter, but this may result in some light sources being blown out. The S23 Plus can shoot zoom shots at night with the telephoto. No digital crops from the main cam. With night mode off, these photos come out nice, with great detail and contrast and true-to-life colors. Night mode does make a nice improvement though. These photos look a lot cleaner with less noise, and light sources are also handled better. The ultra-wide camera does a decent job in low light, even without night mode. The photos are detailed, with good contrast and colors. There is plenty of noise though. With night mode active, the ultra-wide produces about the same level of detail, but the shots are sharper and less noisy. The exposure is brightened up too, at the expense of some of the highlights. There is a new camera this year, the 12 megapixel selfie cam, which like the previous one has autofocus. The selfies are sharp, with nice looking colors. They're pretty detailed too, especially when it comes to skin textures. Now on to video recording, and we'll start with 8K from the main cam. It still has a cropped field of view, but not as much as before, and you can finally record it at 30 FPS. The quality is great here, with plenty of detail, wide dynamic range, and true-to-life colors. The main cam's 4K videos look just as good, with very little sacrifice in detail, and since these clips are much smaller in file size, they're more convenient than the 8K ones. 4K videos from the telephoto look very sharp and clean, with plenty of detail, high contrast, and the same true-to-life color reproduction as the main cam. The ultra-wide cam's 4K videos look good. These have a consistent color reproduction and good dynamic range, but they are not so hot in terms of detail. It's probably due to a lens issue on our review unit, as the videos from the smaller S23 are sharper. There's electronic stabilization available on all of the cameras, and it does a nice job at smoothing things out. In low light, the main cam shoots nice 4K video with plenty of detail, low noise, and good looking colors. The telephoto cam's footage is noisier, but the detail is still good, and the light sources are well handled. Nighttime videos from the ultra-wide cam are good, a little bit darker with some visible noise, but still the detail and colors are decent. So that's the Samsung Galaxy S23 Plus. You get a bigger screen than the regular S23, and compared to last year, there's a faster chipset, better battery life, and Gorilla Glass Victus 2. Maybe it's not the most exciting update, especially when compared to the Ultra model, which gets some powerful new camera hardware. Here it's more like a refresh. But still, the S23 Plus is a bit of an improvement over last year, and it's one of the most well-rounded flagships out there, so it's worth recommending. Thanks for watching, guys. If you'd like to check out some alternatives to the S23 Plus, one option is the OnePlus 11. Or you can have a look at the iPhone 14 Plus. Let us know what you guys think, and I'll see you on the next one.